Hello, Joel. Welcome to the show. We have Joel Yockman with ERGSS. He's the owner of that company, and you're a consultant for FEMA. So let's go ahead and talk about FEMA. We're in an area that's been impacted by flooding, and so a lot of people are going to get ready to fill out those assessments. What is that? What are the assessments? What are they for?
So the assessment is really to determine the extent of damage. Again, everything is kind of related to cost. So the assessment is used to determine, how bad is bad. So they'll go out and they'll assess the damage, and there's a multitude of ways of doing that, but they're looking for a total dollar value of the loss as a result of the disaster.
Now, one thing that I've noticed that they keep mentioning is they're collecting the debris, if they've lost things in their home, businesses, and they're telling them to put them on the curb and not in a pile of trash. And they're also asking them to separate them. Why is that?
So there's state statutes and there's federal regulations that don't allow the federal government, like for example, to pick things up in people's driveways. And there's different. So once it gets to the street, then the state government and the federal government it now becomes eligible to be picked up directly, and they're asking it to be sorted because there's going to be different types of debris that are going to go to different locations. Again, this is going to be an enormous amount of debris. So they're going to take the different debris, like for example, household goods are going to be different than trees, for example.
Mhm.
So they're going to be asking them to separate it so they can hire contractors to say, we're looking at you to go in and grab all of like the tree type debris, and you're going to take it to, location X. And that
Okay.
will happen along the way.
Okay. And so another I don't want to say misinformation, but what people are not aware of exactly what FEMA does. Can you talk a little bit about who's eligible? And also, we talked a little bit about like a rejection letter if you're not covered by your insurance. Just briefly talk about that, please.
So one thing to remember is that FEMA is not an insurance company. FEMA is intended to kind of support if there's a gap in losses associated with like essential items that people need to survive. So when we talk about eligibility, we're looking at, what did people lose? And then ultimately what's required or what do they believe is this formula for life-sustaining stuff, and then what's not covered by insurance. So the expectation of FEMA is that your insurance company is going to cover any loss that you'd have associated with a disaster. So what they're going to be looking for, and by they meaning FEMA, is they're going to be looking for an applicant to actually apply, and they're going to be looking to determine if they're eligible through a rejection letter from their insurance carrier. So if in fact the individual applies for FEMA assistance, the first thing that they need to do is apply to their insurance company for the loss. If they receive a rejection letter saying the loss isn't covered, work with their state, work with FEMA, their caseworkers to provide them that rejection letter, because that's going to be one of those things that's going to be required in order to obtain FEMA assistance.
Okay, we're getting ready to wrap this up. So just to kind of go over what you had mentioned, FEMA is not an insurance company. It's used as a supplemental type of relief. And so you need to go ahead, if you want to file early, you can. However, if you get that rejection letter from FEMA, if you get a rejection letter from your insurance, go ahead and submit that. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the big message here is really work with your caseworker that's assigned to you, and they will work you through the process and tell you and work with you every step of the way.
Okay.
But the first step is to really get that rejection letter from your insurance company.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Very good information. And we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much.